I drive a Ferrari 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
Let's finish up with life advice here on a Friday. Okay. We mentioned Chauncey Billups crushing a guy in an ESPN pickup game. We had a guy with picture verification. This looks like a pretty intense run here. So I'm just going to share the story. I was a regular at the San Francisco Equinox pickup game. That Equinox was connected to the Four Seasons where the Warriors visited. His teams would stay and hold practice. During the finals one year, Chauncey was doing TV and came to play pickup. I'm a former varsity player from L.A. Is that high school? I guess if you're a pretty big-time high school player in L.A., you're probably a decent player. In good shape, 31-year-old. Okay, we don't care about your mile. He said you can grab the rim. You do? Okay, there you go. 6-minute mile, 6'1", 200. Could still grab the rim. Awesome. Definitely one of the best players in this competitive San Francisco run. We all went at Chauncey. He destroyed everyone who went at him. No shit. And he seemed to be expending 60% effort. I snuck around to try to steal the ball as he brought it up the court. All right, that kind of, now I don't know how much I like this email. His back was turned, but he sensed me and stuck his ass out, and I went flying. Another good player face guarded him, which culminated in a corner trap for game point. Chauncey picked up his dribble, faded from the corner, and switched to three. He then announces, "Don't worry, bro. You weren't the first, and you won't be the last." Oh, it took you this to say I no longer watch NBA games thinking I could definitely take duds one-on-one. Like, they tried this in Boston with Scalabrine. All these guys showed up for this radio thing, and Scalabrine horrified and embarrassed guys that like played maybe high school and small level college. And the other deal with Scal is he's big. The same day, apparently, at this run, Kenyon Martin yelled profanities at me because I called an absolute hack on my defender for game point. Kenyon was not even in the game, had no connection to this guy, but was so offended by my foul call, he couldn't help but belittle me. He came on the next game and threw down alley-oops off the backboard. 2016, oh, you walked past KD. All right, never mind. Okay, all right. Good, not great email, but great picture. Chauncey in the mix. How do we feel about that? Was I too harsh? I think they're trying to steal it from an NBA guy from behind in a pickup game to like prove something. I don't necessarily love that, and I like that Chauncey stuck his ass out and knocked you over. But I do appreciate that. I don't want to sound real harsh here. It's Friday, man. You know what I'm saying? All right, so no follow-up. Let's keep it moving. All right. This one's kind of tough. I don't know. Maybe Kyle Cerruti can help me out with this one. Okay, 62180. Need some help how to make friends in college. I just transferred to a big Big Ten school from a small community college. Most of the work was done online. The community college, most people wanted to put their heads down, grind, focusing a little on making friends and socializing. I definitely was more on the side of putting the work in versus socializing so I could set myself up grade-wise as a transfer, which thankfully worked out. Add the online part of it. I really had almost zero practice socializing and making friends the last 2 years. One more problem. I haven't done any partying in my life. What I mean by this is I haven't had a sip of alcohol, smoked, or participated in any parties. He says, parentheses, lame, I know, but it just always scared me. Plus, I have no natural desire to try anything. It's not lame. It's not lame, man. You know what I mean? It's actually very hard. And, you know, this is not going to be easy because, I mean, the simplest thing, you just say, hey, just going to go out, you know, everybody gets a couple beers and then the shyness goes away. And then, you know, you make memories and have these all kind of stories. But don't feel that way. You know, I hate that you said lame, I know. Don't feel lame about it. You know what I mean? You're going to be living longer than everybody else. I know a lot of socializing happens at parties, and I have no experience there either. I'm not necessarily against the idea of expanding my horizons and trying that stuff, but I definitely need to ease into it. So how do you think I should go about making friends? Grades are obviously important, but I want to make good connections and have fun, especially since I only get 2 years at my new school because of community college. My only real plan as of now is to play pickup basketball and connect with people there and join a few random clubs. I'm no Bobby Jones. Shout out to the 83 76ers. Shout out to the 83 76ers. Love that team. But I'm decent and try to be a player everyone want to play with. You know, okay, we get it. You're a role guy. Despite saying I haven't socialized much over the last couple of years, I don't feel as if I'm bad at talking to people whatsoever. I think of myself as someone people would want to be around once I get comfortable and know what to do, say. I don't mean to come off as cocky in any way, but I think I'm fairly smart, decent-looking guy and a good friend. So for me, it's just all about making sure I can get into those specific situations. So he wants to know how we can do this. My first question would be here, guys. Did you have friends in high school, or did you not have any friends in high school? Because it doesn't mean that it's bad that you know what I mean, but it's just it's kind of hard to just turn it on at 20 and be this social guy. Now, I think one of the cool things about college is you kind of reinvent yourself a little bit. You can try to, I mean, a lot of it's kind of sort of default to who we are, but you can kind of like, hey, here are the things I didn't like about me before. So let me try to like do this all over again and start with a clean slate. And some people pull it off, some people don't. I also think the making friends thing, some people really absolutely make it a priority. I never really realized it until I started hanging out with some of my more successful friends that I was like, oh, that's why you keep in touch with all these people. That's why you're always checking in. That's why you're always introducing people to each other. Like you have this Rolodex of people where I think half the day these guys spend just contacting people and then just trying to hook them all up with somebody else. So you're always sort of in the mix. Like I am not and have always been terrible at making new friends when I moved to a new place because I probably just like my core guys so much. And I know it's never going to be like that again. And then I feel like somebody's going to ask me for something all the time. So I've done a really, really bad job about it over the second half of my life. And I don't think that's ever going to change necessarily. So whatever. But I think you're on the right track here with the basketball thing and joining a few clubs, but really it's not going to be the club. It's not going to be the person. It's going to be about how important it is to you, right? Any of the things that we really want to change with our lives, once I decided it was all about work and career, then I made that shift. There's other things I still wanted to do. At times I can feel like I can't get my arms around all the stuff that I'm hoping to do in my own life. And I do think there's a downside to going, all right, I want to change all of these things at once because it doesn't work that way. But if you prioritize the way you did with grades and clearly kicking ass at a junior college and doing well enough to get into a really good Big Ten school, you're going to have to kind of use some of those things that motivated you and focused you to do that in making friends. But then the downside of that is if you're like super, hey, do you want to be best friends guy and be eager, then guys are brutal with it. I mean, women are so much better at like kind of buying in. I would say we do a bad job as guys opening up and becoming friends. I think if you wanted to make it positive for women, it's that they're more accepting right away. Then you could also make it a negative and be like, how come you have to be best friends with everybody after like one lunch? But guys can almost, how like when you have no confidence and you're out and you're talking to women when you're younger and they can smell it on you like a cologne that says no confidence. I think guys can kind of feel the desperation if you're trying to make friends. So I'm not trying to psych you out here, but you focusing on making friends is probably more about putting yourself into situations where you are meeting new people, but also trying to be as cool about it as you can. And I know that sounds complicated, but it's true. I mean, I've even had a couple situations where, there's guys in certain levels where I moved out here to LA and I might have been a little too eager because I was like, oh, these are the guys I'm going to want to hang out with. And then you start checking in, but you start checking in and, you don't hear back or you don't. Yeah, believe it or not. Number 3 podcast of sports. I don't always get a call back, believe it or not. So the other thing too is I'm so much older that I think I'm getting to the point where like some of the guys with young kids and the wives are like, what, he's coming over? Like there's just going to be a bunch of kids here. He's cool with that. And he'd be like, yeah, I guess he likes kids, but what's his deal? He's not married. He has no kids. And he's going to stop by to a birthday party. Like, is you fucking serious?
It's
like,
just
yeah.
him.
Yeah, it's just him again. Be like, hey, I got 2 tickets to this thing. Be like, do you want to bring anyone? No, I'll just, all right. Well, do you want the second ticket? No, I'm fine. I'll just roll in solo. Like he just went to Switzerland by himself. Nah, don't invite him actually. So I'm at a weird age where there's starting to be some questions asked about me about kind of like where my head's at, because I don't have a family. So I think at the younger stage, and I want Kyle and Surdy to jump in here and take over this thing. You've got to be you've got to focus because it matters and make a priority, but you can't let anyone know that you're making it this big a priority because then you're just going to kind of like, it's like, I know once anybody knows me, they're going to love hanging out with me, but I know that like, I'm not going to say like Josh Duhamel's a great example. Everybody would want to be buddies with Josh Duhamel. I've texted him a few times, invited him a couple things, because clearly that would be a world I would like to kick the tires on. And I'm saying this because I know if it gets back to him, he's just going to laugh his head off because he's actually a really great guy. I know when to lay out and not keep asking Josh Duhamel this shit. All right. So there's a perfect example of that. I'm not saying you're going to meet Josh Duhamel, but I know that I've got to be delicate with the way I handle that one. I haven't ruled out that we'll hang out down here in Manhattan Beach at some point. I almost put together this mega night with a lot of big names and good guys, and it sort of fell through. And you're like, is it me? I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and start beating myself up internally. I'm swimming in pretty exclusive waters, and if a guy can't make it down for a dinner to meet up with other pro athletes, you just got to chalk that one up. And by the way, every one of these people have kids, so that's also another problem that I'm facing. All right. I don't know. Did I just give myself advice, or what did I do there, Kyle? Help us out.
I think that was great advice for you. I'm actually in the same. I was in the same boat that this guy was in my second tour of college, because I was gone. I was like freshman. It would have been a lot easier for him if he was a freshman and everybody was at the same orientation and was in the same intro classes and like would walk out together like, oh, what the fuck is this about? Intro to psych, huh? But like now it's like people have made their stuff. He's what, a junior now? He said he did 2 years of community college. So I came back as a sophomore after being suspended for a year, and I went back to the same college because I couldn't go anywhere else.
Time out.
Shit, I thought you knew this already.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I got suspended actually before syllabus week of my sophomore year. With my buddy from home came with me for like the first weekend, and my dad dropped me off, and like 48 hours later I was kicked out, so I didn't make it to a class.
Okay.
Wait, okay. Well, so you got kicked off? Classes haven't even started. A lot of people will tell you, "Hey, don't even show up that first week," because people are adding and dropping anyway. Which is
that's why I brought my friend. That's why I brought my friend from home so he could see. So
yeah, I remember like thinking that was normal because we were all doing it, and then you get to kind of like your junior year, and you go, it's a horrible first impression as the classes start getting a little more specific towards your major and they're smaller. It's like, yeah, whatever, bad drop. I'll see you guys class 4. All right. How did you get kicked out in 48 hours?
Actually, I got stopped by a bicycle cop, and I had like a bunch of Bud Light Platinums in my backpack, and I had 2 big fat blunts in my hands. And the guy actually called my name. I think it was because of the sound that my backpack was making, and we were in like a sophomore dorm, so it's like nobody in that area is really supposed to be old enough to be drinking anyway. And he called my name. I was waiting for a ride, and he said my name, and I just threw the 2 blunts in opposite directions. He's like, "What did you just throw?" And I was like, "Nothing." And he made me stay there while he went and got back up. And so he found like a fake ID and beer and whatever. And I just went the next day, and they were like, "Look at this file." And I had just had a huge file already. They were like, "You should have been gone last year, so you have to go home for at least a year."
What else is on the file?
Oh, grand larceny with that whole thing. I found that thing in the street, I told you. And a couple UPM stuff, and like a fight here, and there was just stuff. It was like a lot. It was actually a large file, so it was pretty privileged to make it through that freshman year. So anyway, but what I was saying is like I then had to take a year off. When I came back, everybody else had transferred from Potsdam, shocker, to somewhere else. So then I basically had to start all over again. And so I'm basically like, and it was kind of hard. It was, people had formed their ways and friends and groups and whatever, and they'd already decided if they were going to join a fraternity or not, or be like regular people. And I just had to kind of figure out what to do. And honestly, what happened for me was I was actually selling reservation cigarettes. There was an Indian reservation right there. And so how I ended up with my buddies, who are still my friends to this day, was one of them was buying like fake Marlboro Red reservation brand cigarettes for me, and he was like, "Hey, we actually need one guy for intramural football." And that's how I met all my friends. Is like he brought the guy that sold them. So like, what's your cigarette business is what I'm saying. Is it's probably intramurals for you. Like, I think you're probably right. Just go to the intramurals and like, see who's around. Like, it might be just it might be like a unique thing to you that brings you towards people, but it's really hard when people are already friends. So it might be a little unorthodox the way that you make your friends, but I think he's got the exact right idea.
Wow.
Yeah.
What are you looking at, Ryan?
There's a lot.
I just don't. I mean, I have a million follow-ups, so we're almost an hour 45 into this pod, so we're gonna have to revisit this another time. That's great though. You're right. Like, if you can't smuggle in non-government cigarettes, if you can't play intramural football, sign up for. You know what else I would do? Try to find like a cool, decent, bar, pub, restaurant thing where people hang out and there's college staff people there, and see if you can, work, floor guy or something one night a week.
Make yourself available, I think, is what.
Yeah,
is
like
what
you got to.
yeah.
What you don't want to do is do a thing where you're like me, where you're like, hey, you haven't gone outside in 48 days and talked to another person. Like, don't do that. Do something where it's like, okay, I know your grades are important, but not every single person that prioritizes some social stuff get bad grades. So you can figure out a way to do it. You're going to have to get yourself uncomfortable here a little bit. You're going to have to get yourself uncomfortable, prioritize being in settings where you're meeting other people, but you have to, as a guy, I can just tell you this, if you come off as like, hey, do you want to be best friends? 5 minutes in, everybody's going to think you're a loser. So you can't do that. That's a long podcast, and I don't want to do anything else now that we know that Kyle had a file that Potsdam was like, why are you still here?
Wait, I thought we kicked you out last semester.
Wait. I'm trying to think of like the movie or TV character that Kyle was, a younger Kyle. And by the way, for people that are like listening to this, Kyle is about as trustworthy a person that I've ever worked with, and gets it done. And these early mornings, like, he's on top of all of it. You're not even 30 yet either, right?
27.
Yeah, he's a young kid. Think about how much you've grown in just 5 or 6 years, or 3.
For real. Left with like a 3.5 too in my major, actually. That's all that counts, right? The major 3.5.
That's what you say.
Overall.
If the overall number sucks, then focus on that.
Yeah,
put that
the
on the
major
resume.
was 3.5. Yeah, it's on there. Trust me.
Okay. There you go. That's our podcast. 3 days a week now. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We're coming back early on Monday. Trent Dilfer will be joining us all season. Jonathan Vilma will be joining us as well. Probably having Danny Cannell stop by. I went on his radio show today. So we have a really good group of guests lined up, some surprises, some other things we're working on. And that'll do it for today's episode. Please subscribe, rate, review, and we'll talk to you on Monday. Thanks to Steve and Second Chance Kyle.